Okay, so good afternoon to GAS 11A and welcome to English Creative Writing. So, for this video, I will going to discuss the lesson 4.4, the local and foreign short story. But before that, let's go back to our past lesson. So, our past lesson is about well-known local and foreign story writer. So, in your asynchronous session, I posted the pre-recorded video, and the title of the pre-recorded video is the local and foreign short story writers. So there are discussed the four writers of short story, two in local and two in and the two is for the foreign. So and that is our past lesson all about the four writers of the short stories, the famous writers of the short story, local and foreign short story. So for the new lesson, lesson 4.4, local and foreign story. So here I'm going to discuss the two short story, one in local, one in foreign. And and the first is the foreign short story. The title of the short story is The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe. So, let's read. So, on the eve of his death, an unnamed narrator opens the story by proclaiming that he is sane. So, siya daw ay matinunong, siya ay namatay. Despite the wild narrative he is about to convey, this narrative begins years before, when the narrator's honorable character is well known and celebrated. He confesses a great love for cats and dogs. So, he confessed that na mahal niya yung mga cats and dogs, and both of which, he says, respect the fidelity of friendship. Unlike Philomen, the narrator marries at a young age and introduces his wife to the domestic joys of owning pets. So, siya ay ikinasal at the young age and inintroduce niya yung kanyang wife sa domestic joys o sa pag-aalaga ng mga hayop. So, the birds, goldfish, a dog, rabbits, and a monkey, the narrator singles but a large and beautiful black cat, named Pluto as his favorite. So, yung the birds, goldfish, yan yung mga alaga niyang mga hayop. But, among of them, ang pinaka-paborito niya is yung black cat, which is the name is Pluto. So, that is the first paragraph. So, to the second paragraph, though he loves Pluto, the narrator begins to suffer from violent mood swings predominantly due to the influence of alcohol. So, kahit na mahal niya si Pluto, yung narrator dito ay nagsimula na magkaroon ng violence na mood dahil sa alcohol. He takes to mistreating not only the other animals but also his wife. So, dito, hindi niya na tinatrato ng maayos ang mga animals na alaga niya and also yung asawa niya. During his uncontrollable rage, he spares only Pluto. After returning home quite drunk one night, the narrator lashes out of Pluto. Believing the cat has avoided him, he vengefully grabs the cat, only to be beaten on the hand. In demonic retaliation, the narrator pulls a penknife from his pocket and cuts out one of the cat's eyes. So, dahil sa kinagat siya ng alaga niyang pusa, yung black cat is uminit yung ulo niya dahil sa nagkaroon siya ng demonic retaliation. And dahil doon, kumuha siya ng knife mula sa kanyang pocket and yun ang pinangputol niya doon sa pinanghiwa niya o pinangputol niya doon sa mata ng pusa. So, though the narrator wakes the next morning with a partial feeling of remorse, he is unable to reverse the newly ominous course of his black soul. Ignored to certain how by the wounded cat, the narrator soon seeks further retaliation. He is overwhelmed by a spirit of perverseness and sets out to commit wrong for the sake of wrong. He hangs Pluto from the limb of a tree one morning. So, sinabit niya si Pluto sa isang tree na yung nakaano lang, para siyang sanga lang na nakaano sa ano, doon niya sinabit si Pluto. So, on the night of Pluto's hanging, the narrator's family's house burns down. So, nung gabi na yon na sinabit niya dun si Pluto sa may limb of tree, yung bahay nila ay nasunog. But he dismisses the possibility of a connection between the two events. The day after the fire, which destroys all the narrator's possessions, he witnesses a group of neighbors collected around a wall that remains standing. Investigating their shouts of amazement, the narrator discovers the impression of the gigantic cat. So, with a roof around its neck. So, on the surface of the wall. So, dito, yung mga tao sa paligid is nagtumpukan doon sa may wall na kung saan mayroon dong nakadrawing na pusa siya, it's a black cat, and also yung may tali rin sa leeg. So, yung black cat, kung ano nyo, si Pluto ay sinabit niya sa limb of tree. So, doon sa sa wall na yon, doon niya nakita yung black cat, kung saan nakadrawing na lang yung black cat, and then yung roof ay nasa leeg niya. The narrator attempts to explain rationally the existence of the impression, but he finds himself haunted by his phantasm over the course of many months. One night, while out drunk, the narrator discovers a black object poised upon a large barrel of alcohol. A new black cat has appeared, resembling Pluto but with a splash of white on his fur. So, one night habang siya ay umiinom, na-discovers niya ang isang pusa na nakaupo doon sa barrel of alcohol. Okay, so he believed that a new black cat has appeared as a resembling of Pluto, but that black cat have a splash of white on his fur. And as with Pluto, the narrator experienced a great fondness for the mysterious cat, which no one has been before. The cat becomes part of the household, much adored by his wife as well. So, yung pusa ay naging part ng bahay. Naging part na siya ng pamumuhay nila. And, much adored by his wife as well. Mas minahal ng asawa niya. However, following the earlier pattern, the narrator soon cannot resist feelings of hatred for the cat. These murderous sentiments intensify when the narrator discovers that the cat's splash of white fur has mysteriously taken on the shape of the gallows. The structure on which hanging takes place, the white fur reveals the mode of execution that claimed Pluto, and the narrator pledges revenge. One day, descending into the cellar of the building with his wife, the narrator almost trips over the cat. Enraged, the narrator grabs an axe to attack the cat. So one day, the narrator almost trips over the cat. So the narrator grabs the axe to attack the cat. Yung kumuha siya ng yung axe to attack the cat, but his wife defends the animal. So dahil nung aatakihin niya na yung cat, is dinepensahan ng asawa niya yung pusa. So further injured by his interference, so dahil sa galit niya, the narrator turns his rage at his wife and buries the axe in her head. So dahil sa galit ng narrator is Lumingon siya sa asawa niya, and doon niya binaling yung kanyang galit. And dahil sa galit niya is yung axe, o yung palakol pa yun. Yung palakol is, inano niya sa asawa niya. Para siyang tinaga, ganun. Inano niya sa ulo mismo ng asawa niya. Faced with the evidence of his crime, the narrator considers many options for the body's disposal. So, including dismemberment and burial. The narrator eventually decides to take advantage of the damp walls in the basement and entomb the body behind their plaster. So, without any difficulty, the narrator creates a tomb in the plaster wall, thereby hiding the body and all traces of his murder. When he finally turns to the cat, it is missing, and he concludes that it has been frightened away by his anger. So, dahil sa namatay ang asawa niya, wala siyang naiisip na gawin doon sa katawan ng asawa niya. Kabilang na doon ang pagsunog doon sa katawan na yun. Pero nakaisip siya ng isang plan doon sa basement nila. Meron doon isang wall, at ang ginawa niya doon sa wall is binutas niya yon, and then ang ginawa niya doon sa bangkay ng asawa niya, doon niya nilagay sa loob ng wall na yon. And then sa paglingon niya, hindi niya na nakita yung pusa. Pagkatapos niya gawin yun, hindi niya nakita yung pusa dahil siguro sa takot ng pusa is umalis siya. Umalis na yung pusa. So, on the 4th day after the murder, the police arrived unexpectedly of the narrator's apartment. So, 4 na araw nang nakaraan, simula nang mangyari yung murder dun sa asawa niya, yung police ay pumunta sa bahay niya nang hindi niya inaasahan, and call and collected. The narrator leads them through the premises, even into the basement. So, ang narrator pa ang nag-lead sa kanila papunta doon sa basement. Though facing the scene of the crime, the police do not demonstrate any curiosity and prepare to leave the residence. So, dahil wala silang makita na kahit na anong scene of crime, the police did not curious about what happened to that place, and dapat aalis na sila doon mismo sa lugar ng narrator. So the narrator however keeps trying to allay their suspicion. So commenting upon the solid craftsmanship of the house, he taps on the wall. So doon sa wall na binutas niya, tinaps niya yon, behind which is his wife's body with a cane. In response to the tapping along, loud cry emanates from behind the wall. So, nung tinap niya yung wall, nagkaroon ng loud cry. Ibig sabihin ng pagtap niya is may umiyak doon sa behind ng wall. So, the police stormed the wall and dismantled it, discovering the hidden corpse. Upon its head, it sits the missing cat. So, doon, pagbalik ng police is nung nila doon sa wall, meron silang mga tinanggal na ilang peraso ng parts ng wall doon, yung mga hollow blocks, and sa pagbukas nila, na-discover nila doon yung katawan ng isang babae na kung saan yung pusa ay nakapatong sa head ng babae. So that is all about the black cat. So the short story, the character in the short story is the narrator, the narrator's wife, the black cat, and the police, and also the others animals. So the settings in the story is in the house of the narrators, and the problem encountered here is nung naging lasinggero yung lalaki. So, doon dahil sa naging lasinggero siya, and dahil sa naging lasinggero siya, is hindi niya na iisip kung ano yung ginagawa niya. So, umaabot na sa time na hindi niya na tinatrato ng maayos yung mga alaga niyang hayop, even his wife. So, and sa puntong iyon is nakapatay pa siya ng isang hayop na which is ang favorite niya, ang black cat, and also his wife. So, the moral lesson of this short story, the human conflict of good and evil also means that law and order need to be applied in order to ensure justice for all. So, if there was no law or order, this would over time result in a hunger for power and control. So, para magkaroon ng the good and evil, it's also a means of law and order. So, dapat kapag dapat talaga meron tayong law para lahat ng nagkakasala sa atin is mabigyan sila ng parusa. And also, lahat naman ng nabibiktima is mabigyan din ng mabigyan ng katarungan. So, that is The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe. So, the next one is The Centipede by Ronnie V. Diaz. So, this is the local short story. So, a boy named Eddie hated his sister Delia. This started when Delia beat his dog Beryok. He wanted to stop her but can't since Delia has a weak heart. So, in the first paragraphs, the name of the boy is Eddie, and Eddie hated his sister Delia because Delia beat his dog Beryok, and even that he wanted to stop her sister Delia, he can't because Delia has a weak heart. So, si Delia ay may sakit sa puso. So, a flashback shows that Eddie and Delia treat each other as rivals. So, here, si Eddie and Delia is rival sila, is hindi sila magasundo. Delia was 8 years old when Eddie was born and her mother died. So, si Delia was 8 years old that time when their mother was died, and when Eddie was born. So, that time si Elia, nung namatay yung nanay nila, is 8 years old, and si Eddie nun ay kakapanganak pa lang. So, which seems to be the reason why she also hated Eddie and blamed him for the death of her mother. So, yun din ang naging rason ni Delia kung bakit siya galit kay Eddie. Kasi nung ipinanganak ng nanay nila si Eddie, is yun din mismo yung kamatayan ng kanilang ina. And next is Delia is also jealous of Eddie since the latter gains more attention. So, si Delia ay nagsiselos din kay Eddie since lahat ng attention ay napupunta kay Eddie. While Eddie loves animals and sex, Delia doesn't. So, si Eddie ay mahal niya o gusto-gusto niya ang mga animals and insects. At kabaliktaran naman yon kay Delia kasi si Delia ay hindi niya gusto ang animals and insects, which is why she tortures them just to make Eddie more miserable. So, ang ginagawa ni Delia sa mga alagang animals and insects ni Eddie ay tinotorture niya para maging miserable si Eddie. So, lagi niyang ginagawa para laging umiyak si Eddie. So, this went out of hand when Delia stabbed Eddie's dog in the eye. So, this went out of hand. So, when Delia stabbed Eddie's dog in the eye, so he wanted revenge. So nung in-stab o nung sinaksak ni Delia yung aso ni Eddie sa mata, so nagkaroon ng ting si Eddie na mag-revenge o maghigante. So, a helper named Berto, so yung meron silang helper dito, ang pangalan ay Berto. So, si Berto ay binigyan niya si Eddie ng centipede. So, he wished to frighten Delia only. So, gusto niya lang takutin si Delia. His senses were clouded with hate. So, dahil sa sobrang galit niya, gusto niyang takutin si Delia. So, okay. While Delia embroidered a white cloth, he threw the centipede on his sister's lap. So, habang si Delia ay nagtatahe ng um, as far as I remember, nagbo-broider siya nun ng flower sa isang white tela. He threw the centipede on his sister's lap. So, um, he, hinagis niya yung centipede dun sa lap ng kanyang sister. So, he returned to his senses and saw his sister down and writing in pain. So, nung ginawa niya yon, doon na bumalik sa ni Eddie na may sakit pala si Delia, and that was the reason why Delia, his sister, down and breathing in pain. So, he regretted it about the damage has already been done. So, dahil doon sa nangyari yun, si Delia ay hindi natin sure kasi sa dulo is hindi na pinakita kung namatay si Delia. Pero, dahil sa pain, dahil sa sobrang takot ni Delia, nung nakita niya yung centipede, nagpanic siya, and also nagalit din siya nun kay Eddie, and after nun ay nahimatay siya. So, kahit na ginigising siya ni Eddie, is hindi siya magising. So, that is the story of the centipede. So, the main characters Eddie, Delia, Berto, and the father. So, the setting in the stories in the house of Eddie. And what more? So, the problem encountered there is yung hindi pagkakaroon ng pagkakasundo ng dalawang magkapatid. Yun ang problema, no? Doon sa short story na yun. Lagi silang nag-aaway, which is hindi naman palagi kasi si Delia lang naman talaga doon sa story ang laging inaaway si Eddie. And dahil nga sa jealous niya at sinisisi niya rin si Eddie sa pagkamatay ng kanilang ina. So that is the problem. So more. And the moral of the lesson in the short story is always love your sisters or your brothers. So always love your family. Kasi ang pagkakaroon ng pagkakaintindihan at kung palagi kayong magkakasundo ng mga kapatid mo o ng mga sisters mo, is magkakaroon kayo ng magandang relationship. And then don't let your anger consume you. Kasi kung palagi kang galit, tapos kahit na wala namang ginagawa yung mga kapatid mo, is talagang magkakaroon kayo ng hindi pagkakaintindihan ng mga kapatid mo. And not only to your siblings, to your family, but also to the other people. So, especially to the other people. So, always think kung ano yung gagawin mo, kung ano yung sasabihin mo, and dapat lagi kang hindi ka dapat laging galit. So, lalong-lalo na kapag ikaw ay panganay ka. So, lagi mo talaga silang iintindihin kasi most of your younger brother or sisters talagang may pagkakulit sila, and kung hindi mo sila iintindihin, so palagi ka talagang magalit, and sometimes is masasaktan pa sila. So, that's all for our lesson for today. And the next lesson for the next lesson, it's next week's, because I think next week's is your exam. So sa pagbabalik ng ating klase, ang ating lesson na is reading and writing poetry. So that is our next lesson. So that's all for today, and thank you.